Hey guys, Brent Hull, Wednesday design video, talking today about a very simple workman house, very small square footage. You know, how do we fix it? And it's been covered in vinyl siding, and what's original and what isn't, and how do we fix the back? So come check this out. I think it's really kind of turned out really charming, and I think it's more inviting. So let me know what you guys think. Okay guys, look at this house. It's kind of cute. Well, this is how it started. And so, you know, I got the request to fix it, and it's hard because if you look close, see all of this stuff here? Notice what's happening here, okay? And even under here is it looks really blocky and thick. And so what's happened is they've got vinyl siding all up in here, okay? And that vinyl siding makes things look thick. And basically what they've done is they've covered over the original framing. Even the soffit is done that way with vinyl siding. So it looks goofy. Part A is that, you know, if I had my druthers, I would probably do a shed dormer, okay, with the shed roof that comes off this thing. But the problem is the neighbor's house, they have a shed dormer, okay? So it might look too weird. It might be the way to go, but they've got a redwood deck or a deck on top of this thing. This balustrade's pretty low. They've got this funky, you know, lattice work over top of that door. And then the columns are these just long, these tall, skinny, straight 5x5 posts right there. And so, but there is a brick pedestal. So this is a simple house. You know, it wasn't a nice house even when it was built. It was working man's area, okay? Nothing wrong with that. You know, houses of this bungalow style, this kind of craftsman style house are all over Fort Worth, and so they're a great simple cottage, okay? We've got to fix this though, and so what I did was, first thing I did is I fixed the dormer. I started sketching in a shed dormer, going over there, over top of that, and you can kind of see what that might look like. It just doesn't raise up. Instead, what I did is I took that original peak, and you can see it kind of in the back there, and I clipped that peak, okay? So I clipped that dormer roof thing so that it basically creates a little hip roof. It's called a clipped roof dormer, or you could just call it a hip roof. I clipped the dormer roof. Anyway, we've got a hip roof dormer now, which is less, you know, bold, okay? Notice the size of that dormer. There is historic precedent for a dormer of that size on these simple houses as they were creating rooms for upstairs, but I put in 3 windows instead of the 2, fixed the proportions right so that, you know, I talk about the face of this dormer being 80% glass if possible. And so, you know, here you're looking at, you know, more like 50%, which is part of the reason why, you know, if you just take this glass area right here, and this is what I'm talking about, versus this whole thing, right? Maybe it's even less than 50%. It's just the windows start looking lonely up there. And so, you know, this kind of builds in better proportions. The windows are all simple. They're 1/1. If I was going to play around with it, I might put a 2/1 or 3/1 windows in here. I might, you know, make this a leaded glass window, something simple. This door is actually behind that lattice. And so I'm just going to show that door there. And then I've introduced these taper columns, okay? And notice too that the whole eave is gone, okay? It's hard to tell what's really going on there, again, because they've wrapped this all in that vinyl siding. And so what I've done is I've just gone back and gone to the open eaves with a beam that's supported by these columns, right? So it looks strong, it's historically appropriate, and I've just gotten rid of all that vinyl siding. Vinyl siding, even though it can tend to protect the wood underneath there, it also is just ugly. And so you don't have any of the details that would make this house more charming. And so I put in these tapered columns. You know, that arts and crafts period has that little interesting cross detail at the top, and I've introduced that. And so I'm playing up that arts and crafts bungalow craftsman style housing. I didn't really change the balustrade because I thought it was nice and simple, but you can see that just fixing that eave, bringing that door out, fixing the columns, fixing the dormer, right? We begin to see and appreciate what a fun, cute little house this can be just by improving the architectural details, just by, you know, playing around with the historic precedent. So fixing the historic precedent, I think, makes this house really charming. Now, on the back side, we had another kind of similar situation where the back of the house was kind of a mess. It looks dirty. It looks, you know, it's kind of weird. And so you can see that I'm playing around with my pencil, trying to figure out, you know, how to make this better. I don't like this tall handrail here. That 42-inch feels like a cage. I don't, you know, there's no window here. There's no window here. These 3 windows are kind of cheap. And so what I've done is I basically tried to make it less uninviting, trying to make it more inviting. Windows do that. Windows open up. And so when you have a blank wall like that, or a blank wall here, it feels lonely or abandoned or, you know, neglected. And so, you know, putting in windows really does make it more inviting. Instead of doing these 3 windows here, I've done 5 windows, which are casement windows. And so I've played around with, you know, divided light feature at the very top of those casement light windows, which you see in the catalogs. I've lowered the handrail. I've brought the, you know, this stair all the way down. Instead of having it come out here and land here, I'm just pulling this landing back so it lands back in here. And you'll notice too, I brought those columns from the front, and there would be another one behind this stair, into the back here so that it starts to unify the house by its architectural stylings. So it's a reminder that, you know, you're at that same house and that, you know, those front columns that you saw when you walked in there are still there. There's a pretty cool wall here. Like there's the stone wall that's the basement of this house. And that really, I think is a unique feature. So this porch is actually above this. So there's an overhang here. And so when I put these columns in, you notice that the lines back there, this is actually covered, you know, overhang. They might even want to pull this deck out even farther, but you got a nice little covered area here. I've opened up that stone wall. There's a door there. I've just put windows beside it, same kind of casement style windows. And so, you know, by opening that up, it makes it feel more inviting. Lowering the handrail, bringing the stair around, adding in these windows. I think that this back house begins to look a lot more inviting, a lot more fun, right? Now you can have this patio back here where you could grill out. You could put a grilling thing over here. You could cover this with a pergola. A lot of fun things you can do to create some outdoor living here, but just by columns, windows, fixing this main element really does help this house. We've got that, you know, vinyl siding all in here. I've opened it all up with the rafter tails, but I think this really helps this house, and I think that this really makes it much more charming, much more inviting, much more historically appropriate. Okay guys, so made it better. I mean, that back now, right? The back is, I think, really dramatic and fun and inviting. Opening the windows, changing the rafter tails, kind of bringing those columns from the front porch into the back, I think reminds you of where you are, reminds you of kind of the simplicity of this cottage. And so anyway, I think it turned out great. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I read them all, try to answer them all. I look forward to hearing from you.